this is the short talk during Zazen, and I forgot the Zen term that's used. Does anybody recall it? During Zazen, when the Zen master gives a talk when people are facing a wall. It's not Teisho. But anyway, okay. And this was given at Tassajara, June 28, 1970. So Roshi was already pretty sick. And this wasn't Ango, but during the summer. And I was studying with him the transmission ceremony. And what it was that he was teaching me calligraphy. And I would go visit him every other Saturday or something like that in his room on Page Street. And so one time, the last time I studied with him for this ceremony was that he was showing me the strokes and the order of the strokes, how they go. And he was, Roshi was an excellent calligrapher. He was a Zen master calligrapher, not just a calligrapher. So the calligraphy, if you observe them closely, is very different than ordinary calligraphers. And so as he was teaching me this one character, his brush dropped, it dropped from his hand. Now, very rarely you see a brush drop from a Zen master's hand. So I felt so unworthy and not deserving to even be there because he was sick. And so this is a talk he probably gave after that. He went down Tassar and was talking to the people. I'm just going to read it through. It's just a page and a half. But this this page and a half is the whole universe. The entire universe in accord with Zazen practice. We're not just practicing meditation, we're practicing the universe in tune, in accord with the universe, the non-thinking universe. That's what's happening. And that's what's so great about Zazen. I mean, myself, I just began realizing that the universe, and I always thought the word Zen even meant universe, but actually it probably doesn't. It was my imagination. But on one side is the character, the kanji is show, and the other side was like universe. This is what I imagined. Zen. Okay. So just two corrections in his the person in his talk, and also the words that he used. The word should was not this kind of should. You understand? He used the word should a lot. He was saying, this is how it is, as it is, without discrimination, impartiality, just as it is. We're not comparing, we're not discriminating. Equal value. So that's when he uses the word should, and the other word is check. You never use the word check in Zen because it's like checking your mind or checking something. You don't need to check. So I substitute the word as aware. Okay? Okay, here it goes. You should sit Zazen with your whole body, your spine, your mouth, toes, mudra. Be aware of your posture during Zazen. Each part of your body should practice Zazen independently or separately. Your toes should practice Zazen independently. Your mudra should practice Zazen independently. Your spine, your mouth should practice Zazen independently. You should feel each part of your body doing Zazen separately Each part of your body should participate completely in Zazen. Be aware and see that each part of your body is doing Zazen independently. This is also known as Shikantaza. To think I am doing Zazen or my body is doing Zazen is completely wrong. It is a self-centered idea. The mudra is especially important. You should not feel as if you are resting your mudra on the heel of your foot for your own convenience. Your mudra should be placed in its own position. Don't move your legs for your own convenience. Your legs are practicing their own zazen independently and are completely involved in their own pain. They are doing zazen through pain. You should allow them to practice their own zazen. If you think you are practicing zazen, you are involved in some selfish, egotistical idea. If you think that you have some difficulty in some part of your body, then the rest of the body should help that part that is in difficulty. You are not having difficulty with some part of your body, but the part of the body is having difficulty. For example, your mudra is having difficulty. Your whole body should help your mudra to zazen. The entire universe is doing zazen in the same way that your body is doing zazen. When all parts of your body are practicing zazen, then that is how the whole universe practices zazen. Each mountain, each river is going and flowing independently. All sitting, all parts of the universe are practicing in their own practice. The mountain practice independently. The river practices independently. Thus, the whole universe practices independently. When you see something, you may think that you're watching something that's outside yourself. But in reality, you are watching your mudra or your toe. That is why Zazen practice represents the whole universe. We should do Zazen with this feeling in our practice. You should not say, I practice Zazen with my body. It is not so. Dogen Zenji says, water does not flow, but the bridge flows. You may say that your mind is practicing Zazen and ignore your body, the practice of your body. Sometimes when you think you are doing Zazen with an imperturbable mind, you ignore the body. But it's also necessary to have the opposite understanding at the same time. Your body is practicing Zazen in imperturbability, while your mind is moving. Your legs are practicing Zazen with pain. Water is practicing Zazen with movement, yet the water is still while flowing, because flowing in its stillness is its nature. The bridge is doing Zazen without moving. Let the water flow as the waters practice. Let the bridge stay and sit there because that is the actual practice of bridge. The bridge is practicing zazen. Painful legs are practicing zazen. Imperturbable zazen is practicing zazen. This is our practice.
There's not really much to say after after reading that. Um, it is quite true that when we take this seated posture, that something happens that is beyond us. Um, last week, I gave kind of a little class uh, to Sonoma State University students, and there was probably about 60 students, and of course talked about the seated posture of zazen, and but it was kind of very sad uh, to see that a lot of you would say the students are going through difficulties, and basically with uh, what the teacher said was some suicide, um, also high anxiety, of fear of actually going outside now because everyone's on the computer. So there was a dropout rate from the classes, and the teacher was kind of very concerned about what was happening. So this is kind of the opposite of what Roshi was talking about, is that there's kind of an endless suffering or unbalanced life that we live in our society today. And actually, it's been as human beings have been on this earth, um, we've been, you would say, unbalanced, and especially with this world situation. So you can say that zazen, or this unbalanced life, comes from actually the condition, or it's a human suffering or human sickness. It's kind of fitting that Roshi read what you did, because I looked into actually Zazen Shin, what Eihei Dogen wrote in 1242, and Zazen Shin has to do with basically the correct transmission of sitting practice. So he wrote, Eihei Dogen, who's the founder of the Soto School, in 1227, he wrote Fukaza Zengi, which is basically how to take the seated posture of zazen. And then in 1242 and 1243, he wrote Zazengi, and then also he wrote Zazen Shin. And Zazen Shin, the title of Zazen Shin is the acupuncture needle of Zen, to actually to cure human sickness. So to take this seated posture is to actually come back to our life as it is, with nothing on top, and it's something that's so close to us that we tend to think very far outside of ourselves and what we can do in our world situation, and also what we could do in our personal situation. So this kind of the sitting in zazen, a lot of people think that it's a quietude or a tranquility, but it's very deep. So it's not just trying to quiet the mind and actually do nothing, where actually nothing matters, but it's something that's very vibrant. It's like, I guess what Suzuki-roshi was saying is the, you know, the whole body, your body is doing zazen, but it's actually the entire body of the universe. So it's the camera doing zazen, your feet doing zazen, and also it is the eye that's doing zazen. So it's something that is it's beyond our conceptual thinking of what actually of what we are doing or what the universe is doing. So this zazen that Shunryu Suzuki-roshi is talking about is very, very vibrant, and there's an aliveness to it. And what Dogen wrote in the Fukanza Zengi. The zazen I speak of is not learning meditation. It is simply the Dharma gate of repose and bliss. It is the practice realization of totally culminated enlightenment. It is things as they are in suchness. No traps or snares can ever reach it. Once its heart is grasped, you are like the dragon when he reaches the water, like the tiger when he enters the mountain. You must know that when you are doing zazen, right there, the authentic Dharma is manifesting itself, striking aside dullness and distraction from the first. So, I guess there's also maybe zazen too. There's kind of a there's our greed, anger, and ignorance that also brings us to zazen, and it's something that that we you would say that we're trying to let go of, but at the same time it's very hard for us because that's what we know. So that is actually the human sickness is actually greed, anger, and ignorance. So it's also the ignorance of understanding that all things are impermanent. It's the ignorance of not facing a reality or life, you know, as it is. And it's the ignorance that we get dragged around by our thoughts continuously. And we live in a very, you would say, a way that is sad because it's clouded with the greed, anger, and ignorance. I'll read. See here. So this is a koan that shows up in the Fukaza Zengi and also in the Zazen Shin, and this kind of reflects the internal working of Zazen. And so Yakusan is Yakusan Igen. He was a Zen master and he was sitting, and a student comes up and asks him, what are you thinking while you sit there? And the Zen master says, I'm thinking the concrete state of not thinking. And then the monk says, how can the state of not thinking be thought? And the master says, it is beyond thinking. When we, it's interesting because this dialogue between Yakusan and his student is basically kind of an expression of what Zazen is itself. So we can say, when we sit down, what is thinking when we sit down? We can say that thinking is the functioning of the mind. So thoughts come and go. When we hold our mudra, we can feel actually the gravity of the earth when we extend the crown of our head up towards the sky. So all these thoughts, they come. The thoughts come on their own, and so we do not cling on to them. But we don't try to drive them away. We just actually let the thoughts come and go, and it's kind of interesting if you think of when we sit, we're not thinking in a sequential pattern in which we are investing ourselves in some type of you would say a story in which it reaffirms the I or the ego. So it could be a thought of a cat, feeding your cat in the morning. It could jump to maybe a memory you had or a sound. So these thoughts that come and go, it's actually the spontaneous function of actually the entire universe, or it's the expression of the universe. So it's not actually the thinking mind of what we think it is. So it's actually the dynamic nature itself, or actually you would say it's the natural rhythm actually of the universe when we have these thoughts that appear, and then the thoughts actually when they disappear. So in our study group, this week it was interesting. There was a line, and it said the functioning of what, and then I kind of ran into this too in the Zazen Shin. It says that in Zazen, our thinking is what, and again, it's something so unconceivable that we cannot think what it is. So when the thought arises, that is not what we think it is, but it's an expression that's beyond actually us thinking, but it's actually the universe is thinking itself. There's a, let's see, in the Fukaza Zengi. So for the practice of Zen, a quiet room is suitable. Eat and drink moderately. Cast aside all involvements and cease all affairs. Do not think good. Do not think bad. Do not administer pros and cons. Cease all the movements of the conscious mind, the gauging of all thoughts and views. Have no designs on becoming a Buddha. The practice as a Zen has nothing whatever to do with the four bodily attitudes of moving, standing, sitting, or lying down. So to put aside all involvements is actually an extremely important thing. So it's actually it's a letting go of anything that the ego is invested in. So we're letting go of actually of everything, and letting the body manifest itself, in which then Zazen, or the whole universe, starts to do itself. So at first, I think what in your reading, what Roshi was talking about is all the parts, then they become one. So I was giving a meditation instruction this week is basically, you have your mudra, and then you have your eyes should be a certain way, your shoulders should be a certain way, your legs should be a certain way. But when I think that's what you were talking about, is when the Zazen does Zazen, then all the parts actually of the body become one. And then that's when actually the universe is doing actually Zazen. It's a very, very, and that's actually, that's when the I exists, and also the I does not exist. So you are there, but at the same time, you're not there. So it's something that's greater than what we can even conceive, because it's the what that is doing the what. And in this, cast aside all involvements and cease all affairs, cease all the movements of the conscious mind. So they say that there's the different levels of creating karma. And so they call it the shinishiki, or the levels of the conscious mind. How it engages with the objects, how the senses gauge with the objects outside of us. Then anything that appears in us, then we actually grasp onto, or we reaffirm it actually with the ego, and then that creates actually a suffering. And so we put all of that aside, or we don't engage in it. So anything that comes up, it could be anger that comes up, we let it go. A thought of your childhood comes up, we let it go. So we hold or suspend all these views that we have, or like they say, is like an engine, we put it in neutral, and then the gears or the engine is idling, but we don't react to it. So when there's an object or something that comes up, we don't react to it, and then that we are not actually creating karma. So actually we're doing nothing. So this thinking and not thinking, this doing nothing is the doing of the entire universe. So it's an interesting thing to think about, you would say. But not only is it the thinking, when the thinking arises. So when a thought arises, that thinking is also not thinking. When that thought perishes, that not thinking is also the thinking. But as we sit zazen, then this thinking, realizing itself or arising and also perishing, is actually zazen itself. So the thinking is the entire universe. The not thinking is the candles on the altar or the camera. So the opposites of thinking or not thinking, they're so intimately together, then that creates, you would say, the entire universe, or it's the creation of the entire universe. It's the what that we cannot explain or grasp. So this thinking is the total reality of the self's body. Not thinking is the total reality of this self's body. Let me read. The great master Yakusan Egan is sitting, and a monk asks him, "What are you thinking in the still state?" The master says, "Thinking the concrete state of not thinking." The monk says, "How can the state of not thinking be thought?" The master says, "It is non-thinking." Experiencing the state in which the words of the great master are like this: we should learn and practice mountain still sitting. and we should receive the authentic transmission of mountain still sitting. This is the investigation of mountain still sitting. This has been transmitted in Buddhism. Thinking in the still state is not of only one kind, but Yakusan's words are one example of it. Those words are thinking the concrete state of not thinking. They include thinking as skin, flesh, bones, and marrow, and not thinking as skin, flesh, bones, and marrow. The monk says, how can this state of not thinking be thought? Truly, although the state of not thinking is ancient, still it is, how can it be thought about? In the still state, how could it be impossible for thinking to exist? And why do people not understand the ascendancy of the still state? If they were not the stupid people of vulgar recent times, they might possess the power and might possess the thinking to ask about the still state. The great master says it is non-thinking or beyond thinking. This use of beyond thinking is brilliant. At the same time, whenever we think the state of not thinking, we are inevitably using not thinking. In non-thinking, there is someone, and that someone is maintaining and relying upon me. The still state, although it is I, is not only thinking, it is holding up the head of the still state. Even though the still state is the still state, how can the still state think the still state? So the still state is beyond the intellectual capacity of the Buddha, beyond the intellectual capacity of the Dharma, beyond the intellectual capacity of the state of realization, and beyond the intellectual capacity of understanding itself. The one-to-one transmission to Yakusan in the state like this is the 36, already in a line of direct descendant from Shakyamuni Buddha. And when we trace upward from Yakusan, there is after 36 generations, the Buddha Shakyamuni. Having been authentically transmitted like this, thinking the concrete state of not thinking is present already. Thank you.